All right, welcome fans to another edition of In Conversation. And today we are bringing back a guest we had on a couple of years back, none other than Mr. Lance Lopez. Welcome.
Hey y'all. Hey Joe, thanks so much for having me back, man.
Yeah, it's been quite a few. I think it was 2016 we spoke in a traditional phoner we did back in those days.
The old phoner days.
Yeah, you probably don't do as many of them as you do these nowadays, probably.
Yeah, it's Zoom. It's the world of Zoom now, One of the good things that came from the trouble.
Exactly. All right. Well, speaking of trouble, man, look at you. You got this new album that just came out here. Trouble is
Yeah,
good. And that's what we're talking about today. We want to talk about this album and dig into it and let everybody know exactly what it's about and how it came to be and all that good stuff.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So tell us about the writing process for you on this one.
Oh, Joe, man. Well, this record was first off, this was the first record I ever did in Nashville, Tennessee. So I was here in Nashville. Now we ended up recording it here in Nashville at several studios and at the houses I lived in, as well as we went to Long Island, New York, and Long Beach, California, and then several other studios in LA. So it was recorded and piecemeal together between New York, LA, and Nashville. And when it started, it was real interesting because my producer of the record, Joey Sykes, who produced the album, was a co-writing partner of mine from years back when I was in LA working. I was in a band called Supersonic Blues Machine, and I did the first two records with them. I was their original frontman and guitar player, and so we worked together during those days, and we wrote songs, and he wrote cuts that wound up on those records. And so when I moved to Nashville to recenter and refocus on my wellness and health, Joey was super excited because he has a lot of connections here and did back in the day. He was a Nashville songwriter. So he reached out to me. I was on this big break. I'd taken a hiatus, and then I'd gone back and done a show for the Arkansas River Blues Society for a thing for Kingfish Ingram to raise money or some I can't remember. He donated a guitar. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I went over to Little Rock, Arkansas, and played a show. I was like, "Yeah, man, I'm back. Let's do this again." And we started making plans for touring Europe and Scandinavia. And Joey reached out to me and said, "We got to make a new record." And I said, "Absolutely." So we already began making plans because we had a lot of leftover songs from the Supersonic days and from my last record. We had a lot of stuff that didn't make the record, and a lot of stuff that we were in the process of writing. So we had songs sitting around and or ideas, I should say, sitting around, chord changes, chord progressions, certain lyrics, certain riffs, etc., all those kinds of things. And so what ended up happening was all of a sudden COVID just totally cratered us out. Man, we were poised and ready to rock and roll, and I was getting ready to get back out there again. I was hungry, I was ready for it, and then bang, COVID. So I went into the tube amp repair business, guitar amp repair business during COVID. And oddly enough, here in Nashville, all of the big artists, they had warehouses full of broken stuff, so they just sent it over there to us. And so, man, I had tons of work during the lockdown. So I worked on guitar amps and electronics and circuits and all that stuff. And in the meanwhile, at home, I was recording this record. And so that was the point of Trouble is Good. The lockdown, the pandemic, COVID-19, everything that we went through, the entire world had the blues. Like if you didn't have the blues, you had it then, And so what we did is that's what happened. I was working on guitar amps and I was making this record and recording at home and actually capturing some of the best guitar sounds in my kitchen. I mean, I've had guys, already guitar players, commenting and sending messages and going, "These are the greatest guitar tones." And I go, "Dude, that was in my kitchen with two microphones." They think it was like it's some big Nashville, some big great studio. And I'm like, "Dude, I recorded that. I had the amps in my living room and the mics in my kitchen." And so that's how the process was until everything opened up. And as soon as it opened up, Joey and I went to New York and we started recording. And, we had so many great musicians show up, like Bobby Rondinelli up in New York, who replaced Cozy Powell in Rainbow. He replaced Cozy Powell in Black Sabbath. Danny Miranda from Queen and Blue Oyster Cult playing bass. We had Greg Bissonette from Ringo Starr's band and ELO. Just a whole host of great players, man. Brian Tichy from the Dead Daisies, Jurgen Carlson from Government Mule, Jack Daly from Lenny Kravitz. I mean, on and on and on and on and on. We just, all these great guys because we wanted to make a blues rock record, because I'm categorized as a blues rock guy. So we wanted it to rock. So we went and found all of our good friends that play rock that we love and had them play on these blues based songs. So the result was really cool. I'm really happy with it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I saw the credits. There were so many different artists on the play with you. I was gonna ask you about that, but you answered that one perfectly there. Um, on the Trouble is Good, you got a couple songs that really stand out. Tell us a little bit about Uncivil War. That one, to me, definitely stood right out when I heard it the first time.
Yeah, well, thank you, Joe. Yeah, Uncivil War was another one with Bobby Rondinelli and Danny Miranda. We recorded in New York. That was, and I remember it being a very somber, sober type of very serious session. And we were, it's a sad song about the state of everything, state of a marriage or a relationship of any kind going wrong, business, intimate, whatever. I related a lot of my personal experiences over the last, however long of divorces and breakups and band breakups and the state of the world, what was happening in the world during that time of the pandemic and the elections and the state of the world. And it was basically, I was frustrated. I unplugged. I unplugged from the media, unplugged from the world, and just really focused on this record during that time. And there was just so much tumultuous turmoil in the media for so long, especially during the pandemic, that I just had to walk away and go back and write songs. And I actually got sick in December of 2020. I finally, became very ill and was ill for a long time. And so I would basically get up and crawl from my bedroom. I finally moved my recording rig into my bedroom. I had this master suite, and I moved it all upstairs, the whole rig. And I would literally crawl out of the bed, crawl over to my computer, turn it on, grab my guitar, and work on guitar tracks till I couldn't even sit up and put the guitar down and crawl back to bed.
Oh, wow,
So
dedication.
Civil War we were working on that that was how the writing process looked. And then we were writing it, we were recording it, and it was really interesting that Joe Biden in his inaugural speech used the term "uncivil war." Joey Sykes immediately called me. He was like, "Are you watching the presidential speech?" He just said "uncivil war." I was like, "Well, good. We just recorded it." So that's what it is, man. It's about the divorce and then all the breakups of every kind, all packed in there, and just being frustrated with, you're at the end of your rope and you're just ready to just say, man, I'm out. I can't do this anymore. And I've had to do that so many times, and I hate that feeling, especially if you love somebody or you're invested into something or something is but you finally get to that point where you're like, dude, I can't do this anymore, man. And that's what Uncivil War is about. And because it becomes so uncivil, and it's just brutal, man. Relationships can be brutal. And that's what the blues is all about.
Yeah. Hey, the other song I wanted to discuss was starts off interesting enough. It's really a nice moody piece there. Voyager, the
Oh,
last track on the album.
yeah.
How did you come about writing that one? That's very interesting for something. You're a blues guy. You don't really expect a song like that to be on here.
Joe, it's funny you asked me that because I always try to do that with my records. I always try to put an off the waller on there to throw. Like with Salvation from Sundown, I had Romeo, which was this big like Pantera thing, at the end of the record, or what else? There were several records with the labels when I was on Groove. They would hide the tracks in as bonuses because they were so off the wall and didn't fit the record. They're like, well, we'll just hide it at the end of the record. So this record, I was like, I'm going to close with something that's totally unexpected. And that's the point, Joe. Totally unexpected. You know, total shock and surprise of, you know, that's the feeling that I always enjoyed and loved when I put on Yes or Rush or Zeppelin or anything on my turntable and dropped the needle and just went, whoa, you know, and was totally surprised by something off the wall that I wasn't even expecting, you know. And so that's where we were at with Voyager. Voyager became a piece that when I came to Nashville, I didn't want to write songs in just like the regular cowboy chords, as they call them, you know, like D, C, G, all your basic chords you learn when you begin learning how to play guitar. You know, all these writers in town, I don't want to say all these writers, but a lot of writers in town in Nashville, they write, you know, the regular cat, and that's great. And they write big hits for Taylor Swift, and that's awesome. But I was like, hey man, I'm going to tune my guitar to an open chord. Because that's maybe I play with a small band, you know, and I don't have a big bunch of tracks and all this other stuff. I got a bass player and a drummer. That's it. Yeah, those guys, and I hope they're going to be on their game that day, you know. And so I wrote, you know, in open tunings. And so what I did with Voyager is I tuned the guitar to open A, and then I took the low E string and I dropped it down to an A. So using it almost like a tempura in Indian music. The tempura is the instrument that goes vertically, and you hear the all the big strumming that goes underneath the sitar, and the sitar is playing the lead lines. So I was like, how do I combine, you know, those elements of I was, you know, big Anushka Shankar is a big hero of mine. I love her. She's amazing. And of course, so was her father, but Anushka's great, and I watch a lot of her videos on YouTube, and I've been a big fan for the last 20 years of her work, and I really, you know, study what she does and try to apply it, make it applicable to my guitar playing. As is like Rahim Al-Haj with the oud player. That Rahim Al-Haj and Ustad Ali Khan did a record called Ancient Sounds, and it was really a big record for me when I came to Nashville. So I was listening to a lot of world music. I was listening to Tanari Wynn from Africa, Ali Farka from Africa, and exploring these different tunings. And it was like, because it's like, let's go, like we've explored the blues in Mississippi and the Delta and Chicago and everything else. Now let's go back to the source of where it really originated, you know, and that was West Africa and Senegal and Mali. And so taking some of those elements of the desert blues of Africa and incorporating that into Voyager is really where the line came from. It was my influence of desert blues from Tanari Wynn and Ali Farka. The oud intro began with sunrise, and I was envisioning what a sunrise would look like in ancient times, you know, with no technology around, no lights, I mean, like, what would it be like if you saw the sunrise over Jerusalem and you know, 5,000 years ago? What would it look like to you? You know, what would it be like? So we created a soundscape, and it was Peter Keys, Doug Bossy, who's a great producer from LA, does a lot of film and TV, amazing. Doug Bossy, Dreamland Studios in Franklin, Tennessee. That's where we did it. And Peter Keys, Doug Bossy, and myself created this intro sunrise, and I played an oud. Doug had an oud because Doug had done the music for the Kiss documentary for, I think, A&E, called Kisstory. It was a big Kiss thing. So he had a lot of ancient sounds from when he had to talk about Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley's family surviving the Holocaust and escaping, and you know, the whole thing. And so he used a lot of that music. So he had a lot of those ancient type of sounds and music from that kind of world. So we just had fun creating this soundscape with Peter Keys, low synth bass, and then he's doing like echo noises in space. you know, and meanwhile the string climbing, and then I was playing oud. I was again inspired by Rahim Al-Hajj. I played an oud, an actual oud. Doug Bossy had an actual oud that we mic'd up and I recorded. And then it goes into the main feature of the song, which is basically it relates to any spiritual deity you believe in that guides you. You know, Voyager, your Voyager, you know, and that's the power that should be guiding you. And then the end, I was reading this book, and that was the other side of this whole thing too, was that all the great bands I grew up with loving, you know, they all had at least one dude in the band that was well read. You know, like Rush had the drummer, Neil Peart. He's reading all these great books and writing all these great lyrics. You know, Robert Plant, Jimmy Page reading great books. I mean, everybody, I mean, you didn't have the internet, so you had great books, you know, and so it was like, let me go check out a book. So friends of mine turned me on to some metaphysical writings of this book called The Law of One, that talks about a girl that had this extraterrestrial contact with, you know, a deity that used to be here during the ancient Egyptian times. So it was really interesting. So I was reading it, and it's kind of a conversation between the two, and I just applied it to the end of that. And then the tremolo section of the guitar is basically a tribute to Jeff Beck. You know, it's kind of the send off and the ascension, you know, and really paying tribute to Jeff. So it pays tribute to you know, kind of a lot of my heroes in the production sense. And then the other side of Voyager, and I'll say this and we'll move on, is that Dan Rothschild was a huge part of Voyager. And it was such an honor to have Dan Rothschild mix this song and really get it to where, because I had a couple of different engineers trying with it and it wasn't working. And we got it to Dan Rothschild, and Dan's dad was Paul Rothschild, who produced The Doors and Janis Joplin. So Dan coming in and really taking the time and listening to me and hearing me, you know, and really hearing me of what I was saying and what I was envisioning the song to sound like. And then boom, he just completely nailed it perfectly. So Dan Rothschild, you're the man.
All right, and like you had mentioned, Joey Sykes produced it, wrote a lot of the tracks on it. I seen here. So how you said you met him years ago? How did you guys first end up meeting? Because he goes back a ways into the area there, and I guess he plays with the babies now too
Yeah,
and stuff. So
man, I was having it. We were at the NAMM show in probably 2012. It was 2012 or 20. I think it was 2012. I don't think he was even 13 yet. It was around 2012. I was at the NAMM show at the Clarion Hotel at the bar. We were staying at the Clarion. Of course, everybody parties at the Marriott and the Hilton. And we were staying at the Clarion, which is right next to all that. And I was at the bar having a drink. I was sitting at the bar and I was having a drink, and boom, he just rolled up next to me and bought me another drink, and he got a drink, and then we sat there, and he was like, and he knew, I mean, he just sat down next to me, knew my whole history, knew everything about me, and was like, we're going to be working together. And he bought me a drink, and I was like, all right. You know, and it was odd because he meeting Joey at the NAMM show at the hotel bar was very interesting. Just because, like I said, he was a guy that came out of nowhere that knew all about me, and I was really shocked. And so I was like, hell yeah, let's work together. And then he started sending me ideas that were really good, you know. And I literally love Joey's pop sensibility, and, you know, because I'm always a big heavy riff guy. You know, I always write real heavy and real bluesy and real riffy and real heavy and hardcore. So it's like, it's really nice to have that dichotomy of the pop sensibility mixed in. And I think that's what's so special about the record, is that Joey Sykes brings such a pop sensibility. Like on a song like Reborn would be something I would never normally do. It's like a cross between Cheap Trick, Cream, and the Beatles and Mountain and all this crazy stuff. So, you know, it's like, that's the thing that you know, that working with Joey and or any other collaborator or co-writer always brings those kind of elements out of me, because I'm a guitar player first. I love to play the blues and I love to sing the blues. So that's my default mechanism, is to go into that. So it's really interesting when you place me in a pop situation or any kind of other situation like that and allow me to infuse the blues into it. And I think that's what Joey's a big fan of with me. He likes to write these kind of rocky, poppy songs, and then I inflect the blues into it. So I think that's one of the good combinations that we have together.
Yeah, I think it definitely the way you two fuse together on this album is really good. I really enjoy it's got good flow from the beginning all the way through Voyager there, even though like you said it seems like it's a little bit different for you, but yeah, definitely solid album. Was very impressed when I heard it. Hope it does really well for you there. What's the plan for the touring aspect now that the album is out?
So basically what happens now, Joe, is we're having an official album release party August the 29th at 2 p.m. at Gibson Garage here in Nashville. So we've partnered with Gibson to be the official exclusive release for the record. We actually did kind of a warm-up show last week in Indiana, which was just kind of a straight blues gig. But we're gearing up for the official album release party with Gibson guitars at their Gibson Garage showroom here in Nashville, which is very epic. So we have some guests sitting in with us. We have the incredible Grace Bowers, young 16-year-old teenage phenom guitar player that's another protege of mine that I've been working with. She's been, around and jamming with everybody in Nashville. She's incredible. Go check her out. She'll be sitting in. And then also we have Peter Keys from Leonard Skinner playing keyboards on the gig. Joey Sykes will be there as well, present, playing guitar. And in the rhythm section, we'll feature Arjuna Contreras, who was with Reverend Horton Heat for quite some time. And he's out on the road right now with J.D. McPherson, opening for Robert Plant and Alison Krauss. So he's kind of been in between breaks on the Robert Plant, Alison Krauss tour. He's playing with us. So, and then another kid here plays a great Thunderbird bass, Logan Greason. He's a great young player, and so we're taking him out with us to bring some of the rock element and some of the heaviness to the band. So that's where we're going to be at on August 29th. And then from there, we strip everything back down to pretty much a 3-piece, and we start September the 1st at Naples, Florida, in Z's Music Kitchen. We've got a young guitar player named Shaw Davis will be opening the shows, and Shaw claims that I was a big influence on him back in the day. So we'll see. We'll check him out. So he's opening the shows, and so we start. The tour dates can be found at lancelopez.net on the tour dates button, and there's a bands in town calendar there. Dates are coming in every day. We pretty much start in Florida Labor Day weekend, and we're back over to Texas and Louisiana for quite some time. A lot of shows in Texas, going back home, and then Midwest in October, and then East Coast in November, and then on from there. We're looking at Europe next year and everything else. So please keep checking back to the lancelopez.net tour dates. Excuse me. They are they're updated every day.
All right. Yeah, I seen you're actually coming up our way here. You'll be in Rochester, New York, which is about an hour away, which is going to be good because I've never gotten a chance to see you live. So hopefully, that'll be good.
Great.
Yeah, we'll make sure we let everybody know about that one. I think it's November 9th. You're going to be out in Rochester.
Right, right.
Do you have any goals set for 2024? Just like more touring, or what's your plan?
More touring. Basically, 2024 is going to look like touring, and I'm going to begin working on probably a follow-up album. But we've got plans to go to Europe. Back to Europe. It's been quite some time. I haven't been over since the Rock and the Blues tour with Gary Hoey and Eric Gales and Quinn Sullivan back in 2018. So it's been 5 years. Time to get back over and go back to Europe. And then, we're going to continue touring the States extensively. as well as beginning a new record.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Any last thing you want to mention before we let you go here?
I would just say, hey, just check us out at lancelopez.net. Please follow us on Instagram at Lance Lopez Guitarist. Give us a like on Facebook at Lance Lopez Band. We're not hard to find. Please give us a like and a follow and a share, and please tell all your friends.